In the shadow of the great walls of Jericho lived a woman society had cast aside. Her name was Rahab, and her life was a testament to quiet desperation. No one saw her as a hero, let alone a part of a divine plan. But when two mysterious men came to her door, she faced a choice that would defy all logic and risk everything. Her story is a stunning, shocking testament that God can choose the most unlikely people, the outcasts, the forgotten, the ones society deems unworthy to fulfill his most audacious purposes. This isn't just a story of faith. It's a tale of espionage, redemption, and the walls that came tumbling down. Rahab had done the impossible. She had hidden the Israelite spies and sent them on their way. She was now a marked woman, living inside a city marked for destruction. But the spies left her with one sign of hope: a crimson rope tied to her window. The most shocking part of her story is not just her act of faith, but the strange and silent act of war that would take place over the next 7 days. A testament of faith that would ultimately bring down the walls of Jericho, saving her and her family, but condemning her entire world. This is just the beginning of a saga of faith, espionage, and redemption in the most unlikely of places. If you're ready to dive deep into the mind of a forgotten hero, make sure you subscribe to our channel and activate the notifications, because you won't want to miss a single part of this shocking story. Our tale begins in a time of immense change. After 40 years of wandering in the desert, the people of Israel stood at the precipice of their destiny, ready to enter the promised land. But a formidable enemy stood in their way: the city of Jericho. This was no ordinary city. Its walls were massive, a double-layered stone fortress that seemed impregnable, a symbol of human strength and pride. Inside these walls lived a Canaanite woman named Rahab. Her house was built into the city wall itself, a home that was both a part of the city and its most vulnerable point. By her profession, she was a prostitute, a social outcast, a woman of the margins. In a world of kings and prophets, her life was one of quiet desperation, a life with no future and no hope. But unknown to her, her house was about to become the epicenter of a divine plan. Rahab was a Canaanite, and she grew up in a world of pagan gods, Baal, Asherah, and others. But living in a city that was a hub of trade and travelers, she had heard the stories. She had heard of a people who had been slaves in Egypt. She had heard of a sea that was parted by a divine hand. She had heard of a God who had defeated powerful kings on their behalf. To her people, these were just scary tales. But to Rahab, they were evidence. Her faith was not based on a covenant or a sacred tradition. It was based on a logical conclusion drawn from the power of a God she had only heard about. She saw the fear in the hearts of her own people. She saw the trembling of the king of Jericho. She saw the certainty of the people of Israel. She knew in her heart that her city's time was up. Her past was one of shame and survival, but her future was now a choice: remain loyal to a world that had cast her aside, or place her hope in a God she had never seen. The conflict began subtly, with the arrival of two mysterious men. Joshua, the new leader of Israel, had sent 2 spies into Jericho to scout the land. They were told to be discreet, to find a place where they could move without arousing suspicion. And so, they came to the house of Rahab. By its location on the wall, and by the nature of her profession, her home was the perfect place for them to hide. But the king of Jericho was not a fool. He was told, "Some men from Israel came here tonight to spy out the land." And he immediately sent men to Rahab's house with a simple command: "Bring out the men who came to you. They have come to spy out our land." This was the moment of truth. Rahab was faced with a life-altering decision. Her identity as a woman of Jericho was about to be put to the test. She could have turned them in and saved herself, but she did not. Her choice, made in a split second, would become one of the most profound acts of faith in the history of the Bible. Without hesitation, Rahab made her choice. She had already hidden the spies on her roof, concealing them under stalks of flax that she had laid out to dry. When the king's men arrived at her door, she calmly lied to them, saying, "Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they came from." At dusk, When it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly, you may overtake them. Her quick thinking and her courage were remarkable. She was risking her life for two complete strangers, for a God she had only heard of. Her home, a place of shame and solitude, had just become a sanctuary. Her profession, a symbol of her being an outcast, had just become a tool for God's purpose. In that single act of faith, her transformation was complete. She was no longer a woman of Jericho. She had placed her allegiance in the hands of a God who had the power to save, and she was prepared to stand by her choice, no matter the cost. What do you think is a greater act of faith? Believing in something you can see, or in a God you've only heard about? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because Rahab's choice is a profound example of trusting in the unseen. After the king's men had left, Rahab went up to the roof where the spies were hiding. She spoke to them, and her words were not just a confession. They were a declaration of faith. "I know that the Lord has given you this land," she said. "We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below." She was not just a woman helping spies. She was a woman making a life-altering decision of allegiance, placing her trust in a God she had never seen, but whose power she knew to be real. This was her call to destiny, a moment that transcended her past and laid claim to a future she could only imagine. She had chosen a side, and in doing so had chosen to live. In a world defined by the impending destruction of her city, Rahab dared to ask for mercy. "Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death." The spies agreed, but there was one condition, one sign that would mark her house for salvation. They told her to take a scarlet cord and tie it in her window, a cord that would mark her house for their soldiers when the conquest began. The red cord became the physical symbol of her faith, the covenant she had entered into. It was a visible sign, a promise, a beacon of hope in a city that was about to be condemned. She lowered them down the wall by a rope, and they disappeared into the darkness, leaving her with only a scarlet thread and a promise. The days that followed were a testament to Rahab's unwavering faith. She had made a vow, and she was now faced with the impossible task of keeping it. The armies of Israel, led by Joshua, marched around the city once a day for 6 days. From her window, she must have seen the silent marching soldiers. Inside, her family must have been filled with fear and doubt, perhaps mocking the strange, silent army. But she held on to her faith. Her sacrifice was not a sacrifice of her life, but a sacrifice of her doubt. She had to believe in a God who had promised to destroy her world, and she had to wait day after day for an impossible miracle to happen. The scarlet cord in her window was not just a sign, it was a constant visual reminder of her choice, a thin thread of hope in a world of impending doom. On the 7th day, the silence was broken. The Israelites marched around the city 7 times, and then the trumpet sounded. A great shout went up from the army of Israel, a war cry that shook the very foundations of the earth. And as the people shouted, the walls of Jericho came crashing down. It was a spectacular, miraculous act of divine power. The victory was the conquest of the city, a testament to the power of God over human fortifications. But the tragedy was the utter destruction that followed. Every person in the city was put to the sword, every building burned, every life was taken, with one stunning exception. Only the house of Rahab remained, its foundation on the city wall miraculously left standing. With a scarlet cord tied in the window, her faith had saved her and her family from a fate that had buffeted the entire world she knew. The aftermath was a testament to the grace of God. Joshua, seeing the scarlet cord in her window, gave the command for her and her family to be spared. She was a woman who had saved the lives of the spies, and in return, her life and the lives of her family were saved. She was a Canaanite prostitute, a foreigner, a woman on the margins. But in that moment, she was brought out of the chaos of the city and into the safety of the Israelite camp. her life was redeemed. She was no longer a woman of Jericho. She was a woman of God's people. She had risked everything to save strangers, and in doing so, had found salvation for herself and her entire family. The story of Rahab is a powerful lesson in God's mercy, a reminder that the grace of God is not bound by human judgment, social standing, or past sins. Rahab's story is one of the most powerful and profound narratives in all of Scripture. It forces us to confront our own biases and prejudices about who God chooses to use. She was a woman from the margins of society, a Canaanite prostitute. But her faith was so profound that it was counted as righteousness. Her story is a testament to the fact that no one is too far gone for God's grace. In a world of kings and prophets, a woman on the city wall became a hero of faith. And in the most shocking twist of all, Rahab was not only redeemed, she was incorporated into the lineage of Israel, marrying an Israelite named Salmon. Through their son Boaz, she became an ancestor of King David and ultimately of Jesus Christ. Her scarlet cord became a symbol of the redemptive bloodline that would save all of humanity. What do you think of Rahab? Do you see her as a hero, a villain, or a woman who simply made the right choice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this journey into the mind of a complex figure moved you, please subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the Bible's most complex characters and stories. Now, if you want to explore another story of a figure who was reviled by his peers, you need to watch the video on your screen right now about Judas Iscariot.